Getting a good update of G1 Megatron has been pretty hard up until recently, even outside of the whole he can't turn into a gun in today's day and era deal. He had that Classics 2006 figure where he turned into a Nerf gun, but that hardly flew even then. There were a couple mediocre tank boys that seemed to lean more towards Generation 2, one of which I've already reviewed, check it out. Some stuff that tied into whatever IDW was doing at the time. A leader class figure from Combiner Wars that I could probably be safe in describing as lukewarm, and an inexplicable triple-changing pre-tool of Blitzwing in Titan's Return, who was also a headmaster, of course. Does Hasbro's new era of generations have a chance to finally give us the G1 Megatron people have wanted for so long? Well, be careful what you wish for. Welcome to Kit Katastrophe. My name is Kit, and today we'll be taking a look at Transformers War for Cybertron Siege Voyager class Megatron. This figure came out in 2018 as part of Wave 1 of the Voyager assortment. In a somewhat minor tradition, Megatron transforms into an H-Tank, a fictitious model. I'm kind of sick of H-Tanks in all honesty. They're so overdone and feel like some sort of cop-out. Just make the treads continuous, please. It's a really lazy way to fold up all the limbs, and on this figure, half of the treads aren't even made of limbs, so what's the deal? It leaves a massive gap in the back where you have easy access to the Mega Taint, and the robot mode feet are clearly visible sticking out the back. Think positive, that's what my therapist tells me. Well, the turret is really where the tank mode shines. This thing is detailed to the moon and back, looking super heavy and giving off a very go fuck yourself vibe. The tank barrel itself is freshly detailed with silver and red paint breaking up all the black. It's just so cool that the fusion cannon is making up the real meat of this turret, like it's some sort of power generator for the main cannon. The turret can rotate 360 degrees without much obstruction, meaning that if you'd rather have the fusion cannon be the shooty bang bang bit, you totally can! The vehicle mode features more of that classic siege weathering effects, which look really on topic considering the gruff and action-packed nature of a tank. Transformation begins with parts forming. Boo! Life goes on. From there, there's actually a really cool lower thigh rotation to decompress the legs for robot mode. Shame the feet transform exactly as you think they do, and those flip-out heel spurs feel abysmally poor, as if Hasbro just decided to import some knockoff quality plastic shit just for these parts. No other piece of this figure is made of the same polymer, at least I don't think so why the heels aren't made of sterner stuff is beyond me. The backpack is also a little scattershot, having some slight clearance issues that make bending the plastic necessary, which makes me a little uncomfortable. The arms coming from the turret mass is one of my favorite touches, as it allows the arms to retain their original gray coloration. It amazes me that the turret can turn like this. Finally, rotating the fusion cannon 180 degrees on his arm is the piece de resistance this figure needed. Well, I can safely say that this figure certainly delivers a faithful representation of the original Generation 1 Megatron robot mode without much compromise. He looks exactly how this kind of Megatron should look and flaunts it. Of course, due to his broad tank mode, the Emperor of Destruction certainly looks like he's been roiding out a bit, but that just makes him look more intimidating and capable of leading the Decepticons. Sadly, any decent splash of color is as scarce as a drop of water in the Atacama, meaning he only has like 6 tiny bits of his signature red accents, which is something of a shame. Outside of the belly buttons, the only meaningful deco work is that siege weathering, which some people might think is entirely overdone. The head sculpt is nice, although it seems to flare out in the back a little too widely, and feels just a smidge too flat in the Z-axis. It doesn't help when the ball joint is located at the very back of the helmet. I take it that this was done to make sure the helmet doesn't interfere in movement, but it's not like he can actually look up with it anyway. Up and down movement is relegated to this floaty panel that has absolutely nowhere to lock in place. Luckily on my copy, there's enough friction in the neck cavity to wedge the panel into place and keep it still, but your mileage may vary. Remember when I said that the heel spurs were made of this shitty Chinese quality plastic? I stand corrected, as it turns out that the stuff used on the ankle tilt is also made from this hellish nightmare of a polymer. People have reported that unlocking the ankle tilt on Megatron's right leg makes it so that relocking it is impossible without disassembling the leg, which really sucks. Mine used to have this problem, but I guess it solved itself. Again, your mileage may vary. You've probably noticed by now that Megatron comes with his standard big black bazooka, given the name D50R35 Fusion Cannon. This thing is massive, it's meaty, it's magnificent. It's cast entirely in black plastic and features no paint applications, but does it really need to? It's the fucking fusion cannon, it speaks for itself. The yin to the Ion Blaster's yang. It stays on Megatron's right arm through transformation, but you could easily unseat it from its peg and keep it elsewhere, if you're weird. His other weapon is the HPR Telescopic Laser Strike Launcher, which is just the tank barrel with swords, side-mounted bayonets. I'm not going to discuss the feasibility of such a weapon, just the fact that it looks awful. You can surround the gun barrel with the blades to form a sword evocative of the original Generation 1 Japanese release's sword, which is my preferred configuration. It's compatible with the sword slashing effect part from Lionizer too. Alternatively, you could store the launcher on Megatron's back, evoking the original cartoon designed sticky-uppy gun barrel on the back. I just stick with the sword. Of course, Hasbro slapped together a combined mode for the two accessories and gave it a silly name. This is the NFM Particle Beam Mega Launcher. Of course, NFM stands for Not For Me.
Now, Siege Megatron is a figure that is quite numerably posable, but when you get it in hand, it feels rather rickety and quite limited in some areas. Starting at the head, he has a ball joint, as I've shown you, but it only works side-to-side range of less than 180 degrees. It hardly goes up. There is an up, no down, but most of your upward range is going to be this throat panel, which it's not ideal. The arms are universally jointed. They go all the way around. They're unimpeded. They can go all the way outwards, though in certain positions they can't go all the way outwards. They can go all the way outwards when these faux hammer bits are up top, but when they're not, they're going to bang into stuff. The bicep swivel is unimpeded and can go all the way around, and the elbow reaches just about 90 degrees, maybe a little bit more. Is that an acute angle? I can't tell right now. But for some reason, there is no possible way to get it between stock straight and bent at around 30 degrees. It's somewhat possible to get it to stop in between, but it's a little bit too much work to get it to work like that. The waist can go all the way around, but you have to move the backpack out of the way for it to go all the way behind him. The backpack doesn't really secure in place anywhere, which is a problem. The hips are also universal joints, and they go all the way forward. They go pretty far backward, but if the backpack wasn't there, they could go even farther. Outwards, he's pretty good. He has a thigh swivel, which goes all the way around. It's just a simple mushroom peg. And the knee is adequate, 90 degrees. And the ankles, the feet. These panels here, the ones that are that have a little more of a matte finish than the ones around them, these are made out of Chinesium. They just feel so flimsy and thin, and like it's the same material that these heel pieces are made out of, and they flex and they pop off. It's just an awful time all around. The ankles do have a good range. You can get them in some pretty wide-legged stances, but look at that. Look at that. It's just floppy. This one is a little more frictiony, but this one doesn't hold. And they are supposed to click back in place in the leg. This one doesn't click. That one clicks. But fortunately, my copy doesn't have that problem where this one doesn't click back into place. I don't have to unscrew it or anything. But it's just a really bad time with those ankles. And If you fold up the heel, you can get a pointed toe. Don't know why you'd need that, but you can. And since these heels are adjustable, you can, well, adjust the heels. So, overall, Megatron's okay, but he's not the most fun to pose.
So, did Hasbro deliver? From a visual standpoint, I definitely say so. From a technical standpoint, well, there's a lot to be desired. From the inexplicably horrid plastic in parts, to the strange awkward nature of some of his joints, and some just downright strange design choices, this Megatron is nowhere near perfect, but I'd say it's the best we've got. This figure gets a very mild recommendation from me simply because it's just competent enough. This has been Kit Katastrophe. Transform and roll out.